Start recording. Hello guys, so I wanted to react to this. Lawrence's draft Alito opinion quotes a man who believed in witches.
Well, you know, nobody has done more for Christianity, nobody has done more for religion of all types than me.
Then
Those
who?
insane words.
Oh, let me guess. It's Donald Trump. Of course it's not.
That is the latest burst of verbal dementia from Donald Trump in an interview
Verbal
today.
dementia. That's a nice way of saying it. Trump has some kind of mental dementia, so it makes sense that he would have actual dementia. Look at this. Look at this dude. Look at this. Look at this setup. Is this in Mar-a-Lago somewhere? Look at this painting. This painting of Trump, like, first of all, that looks like a skinnier, better looking version of him. That's like 40 years younger than he is now. Maybe in his prime, Donald Trump looked almost this good, but no. This is just how does he look? How often does he look at this painting? I mean, this is just such an ego trip, this whole thing, and the rest of it is so tacky, so tasteless. Look at this place.
Network.
Ew.
Now, I have known since my Catholic school days that is blasphemy. And the
this guy went to Catholic school for sure.
That's blasphemy. Donald
Trump
thinks he has done more for Christianity than Jesus Christ. Donald Trump is uneducated in all things, and so he does not know who Christianity is.
Donald Trump is our savior. He's America's savior.
And so it is ironic, to put it mildly, that 3 of the Supreme Court justices appointed by the only blasphemous president in history are leaning
only blasphemous presidents
on their religion, as they
I don't know if you can say that
for the first time in American history.
I'm sure there were plenty of presidents who have done blasphemous stuff in the past. Look at these fucking ghouls. Look at how they're smiling. Look at this Brett Kavanaugh. Look how he's smiling. It looks like it's such a fake smile, like he's some alien learning how to smile. And what is with Amy? Amy, are you okay? You look scared. Excuse me, Amy. Is someone pointing? Is the cameraman pointing a gun at you, saying, "Hey, smile. You better fucking smile, Amy, or else." Look at her face. Her mouth, the way her teeth are showing. Her mouth is not upturned at all, and her eyes look scared. She probably knows something bad is going to happen. She probably knows that, I don't know, she's going to do some bad stuff and she's going to hell, which she totally believes in. She believes in hell, and she probably knows on some level she's going to hell. Neil Gorsuch, he looks normal. At least he's not making a weird face, but he's not smiling. Yeah, all these guys are weirdos. I mean, and Brett Kavanaugh, look at this chubby face. This chubby face and this tiny mouth, no lips, smiling. All these guys are freaks.
Revoke a constitutional right. In the draft Supreme Court opinion that will live in infamy,
deeply rooted in this nation's history.
1, the Constitution makes no mention of abortion.
Who cares? There are so many things that the Constitution does not mention. There are so many things that the Founding Fathers could not have possibly foreseen. The Founding Fathers were so, I don't think the Founding Fathers knew any better than we know now about how to build a nation and how to run it. I don't think that we should base, how we run our nation in the 21st century based on 18th century ideas. You know, is that so radical? Is that such an unreasonable thing to say? And deeply rooted in this nation's history. Who cares if something is rooted in this nation's history? All sorts of horrible things are rooted in history. Slavery, racism, nationalism, fascism, war. All of these awful things have happened all throughout history, and they don't happen anymore because we're civilized now. We have technology and ideas that could not even be conceived of even 100 years ago. Humanity advances, and our laws and our thoughts and our institutions should advance with the rest of humanity.
The Constitution also makes no mention of the right to travel. The government has never granted us the right to travel.
That's true.
Yet we have always had it. Roe versus Wade linked the right to abortion services to the right to privacy, which we also always assumed that we have, but the Constitution doesn't mention a right to privacy. And Samuel Alito and a majority of the Supreme Court don't believe that you have a right to privacy, but they do believe that they have a right to privacy, which is why the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, for the first time in its history, has ordered an investigation of the very worst thing that has ever happened to the Supreme Court. The court's privacy has been invaded.
Oh, when it's their privacy is being invaded, then that's different. But you sure as hell know they don't care about your privacy when they're actually making laws.
The Chief Justice calls the violation of the court's privacy a, quote, egregious breach of trust.
Of trust. Trust. Since when does anybody trust the Supreme Court? Why should the Supreme Court trust anybody after all the awful shit that it's done? The Supreme Court should be leaked. Everything should be leaked. The public should know everything that's going on, even the classified stuff, especially the classified stuff. The American people deserve to know what's going on within their own government that's going to affect their lives in deeply profound ways. And of course, yeah, they care about privacy when it's their own privacy. Just like the abortion thing. Like, oh, they're against abortion unless it's their mistress or their wife or their daughter who needs an abortion.
And that's how the Supreme Court feels when they lose their privacy. It's egregious for them. But they don't care how you feel when they take your privacy away. The private deliberations of the Supreme Court have been invaded by the leak of the Alito first draft of the revocation of a constitutional right. Samuel Alito says that a right to abortion services is not, quote, deeply rooted in this nation's history. Women on the Supreme Court are not deeply rooted in this nation's history. Nowhere does the Constitution say that women can serve on the Supreme Court. Nowhere does the Constitution say that black people can serve on the Supreme Court. The founders thought only white men should ever serve on the Supreme Court. The founders were the original proponents of affirmative action exclusively for white men.
Yeah, that's why the Republicans freaked out when Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated and then confirmed for the Supreme Court. Because, you know, they just don't want black people on there. Sorry. They said it's racist to pledge to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. Because they're just, I mean, they don't have anything else. It's totally projection. They are the racist ones for not wanting a black person on the Supreme Court. But, I don't know, they don't have anything else. They don't have any other arguments. So they just have to throw whatever they can out there. And so, yeah, it's racist. They just say it's racist. This is why constitutional originalism, the idea, is bullshit. Because they will do whatever they want to do, even if it's not in the Constitution. They will make laws about whatever they want, regardless of what it says in the Constitution. But when someone else wants to make a law that they don't like, they say, oh, well, the Founding Fathers really wouldn't have wanted that. It's not, they didn't write in the Constitution that you're allowed to do that. Again, who cares what the Founding Father wants? Literally, who cares? They all died 200 years ago. We are alive right now. What they want doesn't matter. We should consider the wishes, the wants and the needs of the people who are alive right now in America, not some old white slave owner dudes who have been dead for a very long time.
The founders deeply and fervently believed in carrying out the mass murder of as many members of the native tribes of this continent and enslaving as many black people as was necessary.
Damn, this guy's woke as hell, even though he's a boomer. This guy's the most woke boomer you can find. I mean, MSNBC is kind of lame, but you know, this guy's right so far on pretty much everything.
For white men to reign supreme in this land, that is deeply rooted in this nation's history.
Yes, racism, white supremacy, that's rooted in American history, and that's what they're trying to preserve. And sexism, of course, the ownership of women, the control of women as property, yeah, all that stuff.
If you are using deeply rooted in this nation's history as the basis for what you think is right and
You can
just,
justify
then you
all
are
sorts of
lost.
terrible things.
You are morally lost. Samuel Alito reaches back to legal writings in 17th century England.
Oh, I heard about
To
this.
show that the right to abortion services is not deeply rooted in our history. He cites Sir Edward Coke,
Sir Edward Coke.
that abortion is a crime. In 1644 in England, they were still having witch trials, ending in the execution of the convicted witches. And Sir Edward Coke helped English law define witches when he rewrote English law in 1604.
How do you
to make it
define a
even
witch?
More cruel
I
in
wonder.
witchcraft trials. He wrote, "A witch is a person who hath conference with the devil to consult with him or to do some act."
To do some act. Consult with the devil to do some act. I wonder how you would prove that in a court of law. I wonder how they would do that today in a court of law. I mean, back then, they believed in all sorts of crazy religious bullshit. But, like, today, I wonder how you would define had conference with the devil to do satanic acts or something. I mean, you could do that to attack, like, or crack down on, like, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I mean, look at what people call satanic these days. Oh, we just watched a video before on the Satanic Temple. People think masks are satanic. People think, you know, BLM, Antifa is satanic. Or, yeah, lockdowns are part of, like, some satanic, conspiracy to destroy America. People believe that the Democrat Party is satanic. I mean, the QAnon people certainly do. So, yeah, I wonder. I mean, yeah, the definition doesn't matter because they decide who is a witch and who is not based on, like, who they want to kill, basically.
So Samuel Alito is quoting approvingly the 1644 judgment on abortion of an English aristocrat who said a witch is a person who has
A
conference
British
with the devil.
aristocrat.
Samuel Alito is reaching back 4 centuries to use Sir Edward Coke as a...
Again, all the problems in the world, all the evil acts, they all go back to the British. Every bad thing that has ever happened in all of world history, you can trace back to the British in some point or another. Africans enslaving other Africans, that's actually English people's fault. Everything. If I could go back in time with one nuke and just nuke the city of London in, like, 1500 or something, or earlier, to be honest, because, like, they did some crazy bad shit in the medieval times too. I don't want to get into the Crusades or whatever, but that would do. People talk about going back in time to kill baby Hitler. No, go back in time and nuke London. That would maximize the good being done with one time travel trip.
moral authority on abortion, a man who believed in witches.
I'm being hyperbolic, of course.
They were
A little bit, just a little bit.
And believed that witches should be murdered by the state, and he helped make sure that they were murdered by the state in England. Samuel Alito needs to talk to the clerk working for him, who found that reference to Sir Edward Coke,
Edward
and
Cook.
get that erased from his draft opinion.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even find this person? You got to be looking for like ancient fucking texts to even find that. I mean, maybe they knew about Edward Cook previously, but like That's such a reach. Over like 300 years old. Something from like before the American Revolution. Talking about deeply rooted in the nation's history. This is before the nation's history even began. Like, it's such a reach. It's like they're desperate to find something.
We were executing witches in this country as late as 1692. Men and women were given the death penalty in this country.
Men and women.
Witches, mostly women, of course.
Mostly women.
Dorothy Good was 4 years old.
Oh my
when
God.
She was accused of being a witch in
a 4-year-old
so
being killed. For what? I wonder what the 4-year-old did exactly to make her accused of being a witch. I don't even want to know. What I do want to know is what the men did who were accused of being witches. Because, it's mostly women who are accused of being witches, but apparently some men have. I bet those dudes were the coolest dudes you could find 400 years ago. I wanna go back in time and meet some of the male witches. Would they be wizards, or are they just male witches? I bet they got some all the hot witch babes back in the day. Those dudes were the coolest, I bet.
Outlawing abortion because people conducting witch trials also believed abortion should be against the law. You are morally lost.
Morally.
That is what the twisted reasoning of Samuel Alito has delivered to us.
I wonder if people back 400 years ago or something would consider abortion immoral. I mean, maybe. I mean, back then, babies died all the time. Back then, children died. Back then, each woman would have, an average of, 10 and a half children, and 8 of them would not survive to adulthood. So, would they care so much about killing babies in the womb when, the baby would be born to, a poor mother who couldn't take care of them? I don't know. I mean, yeah, actually, Sir Edward Cook apparently said abortion is a crime. So, yeah, maybe they did. But
in the first Supreme Court opinion in history, revoking a constitutional right. For most presidents, the only thing they get to do that outlasts their presidency is appoint Supreme Court justices. Clarence Thomas's service on the Supreme Court is the only enduring thing from the presidency of George H.W. Bush. A vote for George H.W. Bush for president in 1988 has turned out to be a vote to revoke a constitutional right.
Damn. Yeah, Clarence Thomas is such a demon. Speaking of demons, it feels like people were asking for a black man to be put on the Supreme Court. They were like, "Oh, you want a black man to be on the Supreme Court? Okay, we will find the worst black man in America. We will look through all the black men who are qualified for this job and pick the absolute worst one out of them all. They don't even have to be qualified. We just want them to be a crazy, conservative, hateful, just ghoul."
His son, George
Screw that guy.
Bush.
Oh, and he's one of the 5% of African Americans who's the conservative kinds. You know what I'm talking about. He's married to a white lady, and the white lady's a QAnon crazy nut. Yeah, he's the kind of black guy who hates or dislikes 90% of all the other black people, who buy into the racist stereotypes of black people and think oh, if only all those black guys living in the ghetto could be like me and rise above, they could be better. But no, they're choosing to live in poverty and crime.
Created the Department of Homeland Security, which endures, and began wars that he could not complete, but his most enduring legacy.
Yeah. Oh, wars that cost $7 trillion out of what is the national debt right now? $20 trillion, $25 trillion. A lot of that was from the war. Yeah, and everyone agrees now the Iraq War was bad. Also, the Department of Homeland Security was created, yeah, under George W. Bush. People who say like, "Oh, we can't abolish ICE because ICE, we need ICE to protect us." Well, we did fine without ICE for most of our history until like what, 20 years ago, or even less than 20 years. So, yeah, abolishing ICE is not such a radical idea.
Is now the delivery of Samuel Alito to the United States Supreme Court, the first Supreme Court justice to write an opinion revoking a constitution.
Look at this pose he's in. What is this?
Donald Trump.
George W. Bush was such a like a goofy guy. Like, he wasn't as just like plainly evil as Donald Trump. He did a lot of bad shit, of course, but he's just like stumbling through. You know, Dick Cheney was responsible for a lot of it. George W. Barely knew what was going on most of the time. He's kind of just like a dumb, funny guy.
Did something that no one-term president has ever done before. He appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. The last president to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices was Ronald Reagan, and it took him 8 years to do it. Donald Trump, the president least capable in our history of evaluating candidates for the United States Supreme Court, got to appoint 3 of them, and all 3 of them are voting to revoke a constitution.
Yeah, all 3 of them are pretty bad. I guess Gorsuch is like, I don't know, like a moderate standard Republican kind of guy, but even, of course, that's bad, but like the other 2 are just awful.
Constitutional right. 70% of the country is opposed to what the Supreme Court is doing. In a democracy, this could never happen, but we do not live in a democracy because of the Electoral College and the United States Senate. The only way
and the Supreme Court, yes,
can get a majority vote in the Supreme Court now is thanks to the Electoral College installing 2 Republican presidents who came in second with the voters. Al Gore got more votes than George W. Bush,
yes,
but George W. Bush got the presidency thanks to the Electoral College. Donald Trump came in second with the voters, yes, by a wide margin, but was installed
3 million
in the presidency by the Electoral College. That's a lot of votes. Democrats in the United States.
Yeah, the Electoral College does not have a great track record. Let's see, the only time it ever affected the outcome of an election was Donald Trump, like the worst president in American history, and George W. Bush, who is the 2nd worst president in American history. Maybe if you go back in time, I know the history buffs like to say, "Oh, you think Donald Trump is the worst president? What about James K. Polk?" Well, I don't care about the 19th century presidents. They don't even matter at all. I think it's safe to say that George W. was like the 2nd worst president in American, at least recent American history. I mean, Ronald Reagan sucked, but you know, he had his good moments. I mean, maybe, but yeah, those 2 are just awful.
The United States Senate represent far more people than Republicans represent, but both parties have the same number of seats in the United States Senate.
That's
because
true.
Of the profoundly anti-democratic formula that each state gets 2 senators.
I don't know if it's right to call it anti-democratic, but it is really messed up how, depending on what state you live in, you have more of a say in government than people who live in like a more populated area. It is like, there are some states that have like less than 1 million people living in them, and they get as much representation as states that have like 50 million people living in them in the Senate. That's, yeah.
The 44 million people of California get 2 senators, and the 1.6 million people of the Dakotas get 4. That is not democracy. That can never be democracy. And so 70% of the country is living tonight under the anguish and the weight of minority rule. 70% of the country is losing a constitutional right against their will. 70% of the country has had that constitutional right for their entire lives. But for Samuel Alito, that is not deeply rooted in this nation's history.
Yeah, not enough for him.
There is one president in our history who was impeached twice and never won a majority vote in a presidential election, and he got to appoint the same number of justices as Ronald Reagan, who won 49 states in his re-election campaign.
Yikes. That's what I'm talking about. Like, Ronald Reagan sucked, but at least, like, a lot of people liked him. He was very popular, which is more than you can say of Donald Trump, who, Never won the popular vote.
There
Not
is
once.
one president in our history who provoked serious public discussions of using the 25th Amendment to remove him from office, and he got to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. The first public discussion of the 25th Amendment with Donald Trump that I'm aware of to remove him from office was on this program in the first month of the Trump presidency. And we now know that in the last month of the Trump presidency, in the last days of the Trump presidency, there were serious discussions about removing Donald Trump using the 25th Amendment, and those discussions were taking place among congressional leadership in both parties.
You know, when they were talking about it,
the leader of the House,
you know, when they were talking about it, like in the first month of the presidency, they were called, like, they must have, people said of them, they were freaking out, they were overreacting. But then, no, 4 years later, everybody saw that no, Trump derangement syndrome is not a real thing. It's just like genuine and justified worrying about, like, the awful things that are going to happen.
Republicans participated in discussions about removing Donald Trump using the 25th Amendment after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Today, the authors of the new book titled "This Will Not Pass" released audio tape of Kevin McCarthy in a meeting with House Republican leadership discussing the possible impeachment of Donald Trump and the possibility of removing him from office using the 25th Amendment.
Yeah. Look, what the president did is atrocious and totally wrong. From the standpoint, we're 12 days away.
Did this just come
At
out?
one point, I think with Biden, if you have an impeachment and you're stuck sitting in the Senate and he needs cabinet members, you've got Secretary of Defense, you've got a lot of things you've got to have moving. And if you think from the perspective, you put everything else away, this country is very, very divided.
You know, I think the options that have been cited by the Democrats so far are the 25th Amendment, which is not exactly an elegant solution here.
That takes too long, too.
Not exactly elegance.
Right?
Just like Donald Trump, not elegance.
If the president were to submit a letter overruling the cabinet and the vice president, a 2/3 vote in the House and Senate to overrule the president. So it's kind of inartful. Obviously, impeachment has been discussed, and then I think they want him to resign, which I don't see happening either. But members are talking about it, and we'll keep you posted on what we're hearing.
The president they are talking about got to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices after coming in second with the voters and after Mitch McConnell defied the Constitution and refused to bring President Obama's last Supreme Court nominee to a vote in the Senate so that Donald Trump could choose one of the names on Mitch McConnell's list to fill the seat on the Supreme Court that the Constitution said should have been filled by President Obama. Such is the Constitution.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, they stole the Supreme Court nomination from Obama. That's fucked up. I hope, like, if Democrats ever get a supermajority in the Senate, which won't happen probably for at least like a few election cycles, I hope we get to do that over. I hope we get to just, like, say, hey, these justices are illegitimate. We get to put in our own now.
Of Republican minority rule in the 21st century, which is well on its way to being deeply rooted in this country's history.
Okay, thank you, MSNBC. Wait, who is the guy? Lawrence O'Donnell, yeah. The based boomer, Lawrence. Yeah. I mean, he's right about pretty much everything. Yeah, he's one of the good ones. One of the good boomers. So, in summary, it doesn't matter if something is deeply rooted in the nation's history. I don't care if something is rooted in the nation's history or not. All sorts of horrible stuff happened all throughout history. It doesn't matter. And then the whole thing about witches.
In this country for being witches, mostly women.
Yeah, mostly women. I'd like to meet the male witches. I bet they were cool guys. Yeah, we just watched a video on like the Satanic Temple, Channel 5, interviewing people at the Satanic Temple meeting. And yeah, there are some freaks and weirdos in the Satanic Temple, but like most of them are well-meaning, cool and good people who are just trying to like build a community, uh, and like do real activism that makes people's lives better. Whereas like the church just seems like that like the evangelical conservatives are the ones who are making people's lives worse. So do with that what you will.
Of course.
Yeah, and the whole witch thing,
Darn
like
good.
like it seems like the right wing will demonize their opponents in just awful ways that justify doing pretty much anything to them. That's the whole QAnon thing. The QAnon thing believes that the Democrat Party is run by like satanic, Satan worshipping pedophiles who drink the blood of children, do all sorts of horrible things to children, to like get adrenochrome from them or whatever they believe. If depending on how far down the rabbit hole you go, they believe that like the deep state people are not even human beings. I mean, they all say Democrats. Funnily enough, like the Republicans don't like sacrifice babies, even though like the Republicans are worse than Democrats in pretty much like every way. They only focus on like the Democrats doing sex crimes, sure, but like if you believe that like your enemies are Satan worshipping pedophiles, that justifies like doing pretty much anything to them. And the same as like accusing people of witches for like what, being hot and like doing hot girl shit. They drowned people, they burned people at the stake, which has got to be like one of the some of the most painful ways of dying possible. So yeah, anyway, in conclusion, right-wing reactionaries are evil. They want you to suffer. They want to make your life worse if you're not like a white, straight, wealthy, cisgender, heterosexual male, etc., etc. And yeah, they cannot be allowed in positions of power. Okay, well, thank you for watching, and oh, my camera's bugging out? Oh well, then it's time to end it anyway. Okay, well, good night.